Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and today on the podcast, we are talking about the frost in Brazil and how it will affect your business as well as your career, no matter what business you work in and what career that you have in the coffee industry. Before we get started, we want to thank our supporting sponsor, Baratza, ours and yours favorite manual brewing grinder company. I always struggle to say that clearly, but they're our favorite manual brewing grinder company. I have a Baratza grinder. I love it. I wouldn't use anything but that. If you are looking for a new grinder, head to baratza.com. And if you're looking to stock Baratza grinders in your store or on your online store, also head to baratza.com and get in contact with them today. Don't forget to check the show notes for more details. So, how is the frost in Brazil likely to affect your business? In the last episode, we spoke about how it will affect the supply chain en masse and how it will affect producers. But today we want to talk about how that will trickle down through the value chain and affect the consuming end of the market. Now, basic economics talks about supply and demand. If the yield goes down from Brazil and you've got Vietnam and Colombia experiencing issues with being able to fulfill supply because of their own individual issues. That's the top 3 coffee producing countries in the world struggling right now to get coffee out. And if Brazil experiences those issues for another 2 to 3 years, what this means is that even if the demand doesn't go up and it just stays the same, but the supply drops, what you're going to start to see is prices go up because there's less supply and the same, if not more, demand. And what this also means is you'll have the bigger companies come in and they'll say, we need all of your crop. Don't worry about the specialty side of things. We will just take it as it is. And by big companies, I mean the companies like Nestle, the companies that produce all types of instant coffee around the world where quality of coffee doesn't really matter. Any big company that's roasting super dark and the quality doesn't really matter. For them, this is going to be an opportunity where they have to secure their supply and they will go in and pay a higher price or take the whole supply of a producer so that they are prioritized. That may also create further constraints to the supply that goes into the greater market. Now, if that happens, prices will go up. And that's simple economics. I recently had a conversation that will air on the podcast this week with Alejandro Cadena, who is the CEO of Caravella, and we spoke about the specific issue of what I'm about to tell you. How can cafes and roasters seize this moment to make some monumental historic changes to the way our business model works because of what's happening in Brazil? And if there's ever been an opportunity for us to seize the moment to back producers and fix our broken business models, this is the moment. And we will link to an article that Alejandro released on the Caravella website speaking about this specifically. And what he has stated, and we've spoken about this many times on the podcast, this is the time to raise your prices. We said it about COVID, and now we're saying about the supply chain issues. The market or consumers haven't realized yet that there's going to be a problem. And that's because the real problem here isn't going to be seen in the market until next year, because there's still going to be coffee coming out of Brazil, less than expected because of the drought, but there is still going to be coffee coming out of Brazil this year, regardless of the frosts, because the trees had already cherried before the frost came. But now what we're going to see is that the damage done to the trees is going to hinder the amount of supply that there will be. Yield will be down next year and the year after and the year after that, because coffee trees will have died. Not all of them, but many of the coffee trees, if you look at the videos we've been sharing with our mailing list, you will see that there is some substantial damage being done across the southeastern region of Brazil. So if your prices are going to go up, you have two ways to address this. Either you look for cheaper coffee or you raise your prices. And historically in our industry, what we do is we take the Band-Aid fix. We dig into our cost of goods and we look for cheaper supply of costings. Now, what we are imploring you to do is to be courageous right now and trust your customers and trust your team, and know that there are difficult conversations that need to be had with your customer base that educate them about what's going on with producers, and really lean into this moment where you can start increasing your prices for a reason that your consumers will understand. There is inflation happening everywhere. It's not looking at backing off. Regardless of what the US Fed wants to say, they started saying it was transitory. Now they're saying it's less likely to be transitory, or perhaps not as transitory. So we know it's not transitory. We know that inflation is continuing. We've been speaking about it for months on this podcast. So there are indicators around that your consumers are already aware of, that are already leading them to expect that your prices may go up. Now is the time to start with a communication strategy that allows you to lean into advising people what's going on in Brazil, helping them understand that there's going to be a price increase over the next 12 months in increments. Perhaps you're going to be raising your prices once every quarter for the next 12 months to 2 years, fractionally, so that they can adapt to it. But tell them the reasoning why. Tell them that wages are going up. Tell them that the coffee supply is going down in the world and coffee is getting more expensive, and inputs for producers, that's fertilizers and other things that they need to produce coffee, all of those inputs are going up. So creating this agricultural product, this very complex agricultural product to grow, is getting more expensive. Prices have barely shifted over the last 30 years for producers. And the margins are getting thinner and thinner and thinner from the consuming end. This is the time for us to be doing something about it. And if you don't seize this moment, you're going to miss it. And I don't want you to miss it. So please consider raising your prices right now, or at least right now, starting to put the plan together for the next 12 to 24 months. If you are a roaster, if you are a barista, if you are a professional rather than a business owner, and you want to know how this is going to affect you, this is going to affect you because you're going to have to start having some really difficult conversations with your consumers, with your customers, your facing customers. And they're going to ask you why the price is going up. So please get educated on this so that you can clearly explain to a customer what's going on and why it's going on. And they will love that you know what you're talking about. They will love that you're able to help get them educated. I don't know a single roastery on the planet that doesn't roast Brazilian coffee. And if the supply is going to become more restricted, and it will become more restricted, you're going to have to adapt to that by either finding other coffees or paying more money for the same coffees that you've already had. And any green importer that's telling you that this is not going to be a problem, they're talking shit to you. They're covering their own ass. So if somebody is saying to you, no, it's not going to be a problem, find out why they're saying that. And don't believe me. Go do your own research. We advocate for free critical thinking here on this podcast. So we're giving you some information that comes from numbers. It comes from conversations that we have on the podcast that are unedited and uninterrupted so that you can see the legitimacy and the integrity and the transparency of the conversation. But don't take our word for it. Go and ask producers, connect with them. They want to talk with you. Use Google Translate if they're speaking to you in a language that you don't understand, and get informed for yourself. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. And if you have, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share it with your friends. Hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. And take care of yourselves, friends. These are really very interesting times. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day.